My name is Grace Hayek, and on behalf of the Glencoe Public Library, I welcome you to our program with Anne Cicerella. This program is co-sponsored by our friends at the Friends of the Green Bay Trail, who have helped us present many first-rate speakers over the years. Let me tell you a bit about our presenter. Anne Cicerella is a landscape designer who's been creating gardens for over 35 years, mostly in the Cleveland area. She's also designed gardens for an eco resort in Panama and residential gardens in Virginia, Georgia, and Evanston. Her firm, Anne Cicerella Landscape Design, was awarded a gold medal by the Association of Professional Landscape Designers. In 2015, she founded the Cleveland Pollinator and Native Plant Symposium to bring national and regional experts to Cleveland to educate and inspire those who design, build, and maintain biodiverse landscapes. The symposium continues as a virtual speaker series in collaboration with the Western Reserve Land Conservancy. Anne has a certificate in landscape horticulture from Cleveland State University, and she's an Ohio certified pollinator specialist, an Ohio certified volunteer naturalist, and a Xerces Society ambassador. That's bees, by the way. I didn't know it, I had to look it up. Xerces. If you see her talking to the bees, birds, and butterflies in her garden, she will tell you that she's just having a staff meeting. Thank you for sharing your gardening wisdom with Glencoe, Anne, and I will let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. So, that's my fan club over there. Yes, yes, the $100 bills will be handed out. So, well, I would really like to thank my dearest and oldest friend, Linda Patchett, who is the one who persuaded me to come here and give a talk. She's a librarian here, a children's librarian. And also my two cousins have come to support me as well. So I'm thrilled that you all are here, and we will get started. Okay, I've got to remember this. So cultivating pollinator and wildlife habitat in your garden. I'm going to be taking you sort of through a personal journey, because when I first started in landscape design all those years ago, native plants was not anything that anybody was talking about. You still wanted to emulate what you saw in England. Okay, and this picture I actually took at Bill Curtis's garden. Anybody know Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me?
Yes, in Mattawa.
Yeah, so that was taken there. I have spent, because of Linda, so much time here in Chicago. So I am very familiar with the Chicago Botanical Garden. I can't even count how many times I've been there. I've come here for special programs there. Oh, wait, that was a delayed thing. Okay, anybody know where this is?
Virginia?
You know that. Right, that's in the Lurie Garden. One of my favorite gardens. That's the Lurie Garden in the fall, and you can see the beautiful colors, the yellow of the Amsonia. How many of you go down to Lurie very often? Oh, it's just, I have been there in every single season. Anybody know where this is?
Yeah, it is too, because you told.
Linda, come on. I'm trying to see who else knows here. Yes, this is the Art Institute, and this, that is the arch that was part of the stock exchange. And here's another close-up. That was designed by Roy Diblick. Does anybody know who Roy Diblick is? Okay, so Roy, I have a picture of him coming up, but he owns Northwind Perennials in Burlington, Wisconsin. And when Pete Aldiff was designing the Lurie Garden, he needed a source for all the different plants that he wanted to put in there. and he met with Roy, and Roy Diblick grew 26,000 plants for the Lurie Garden. How's it going to go? And there I am with Roy at North Wind. It's a great place to go. It's not that far away, right? How long does it take to get there, Linda?
Hour and a half, I don't remember.
Okay, well, it's a really fun place to go to. I think they open on the 22nd. So now I'm going to tell you more about my whole journey into native plants. So I'm a beekeeper, and these are my bees. So the bees you're seeing here are the foragers. And any bees that you see out on flowers, that is their very last job in life. So they're out there collecting pollen, collecting nectar, and when they get to the opening, they should be met by another bee whose job it is to take the nectar from them. Because what the bees want to do is they want to go out, they want to forage, they want to come in and offload that nectar as quickly as possible and get back out there. If the bee has pollen, the bee will take it right on in to one of the frames where they will pack in the pollen. So here's what, when I started beekeeping, I really knew nothing about beekeeping, which was a big mistake. So they died a couple years in a row, and I thought, okay, I need to really learn about beekeeping and how to keep them alive. So one of the things that I wanted to know is, what do bees need? So I did this research and found out that not all plants are created equal with what they have to offer. Not only bees, but all pollinators. Some plants have optical attractiveness, and you're seeing that bloom all over. That's forsythia. It offers nothing. So I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I want to, give the honeybees the best that I can. And you all may be aware of today that there's a big thing going on with, between native bees and honeybees. So, I only have a few hives, so I doubt that I'm impacting that all that much. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some native plants, and I'm going to start very small along my driveway. And I live at Shaker Heights. I live in a brick Georgian, and I was very nervous about what people were going to think about what I was doing here, because no front yards had anything at all going on like this. And this was in 2015. Interestingly enough, Shaker Heights is just now proposing that they allow people to landscape their yards with a natural look. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but so this is what it looked like. I still was planting. You can see right down there, I still have a pot there. I was planting all that. Well, a very strange thing happened. So now I'm walking up and down, taking a look at what I saw there, and I started noticing all these other bees. I thought, what are these? I have no idea at all what I'm looking at. So I decided that I needed to find out even more. These are all the books that I highly recommend. So this book would be more for design. This is Roy Diblick's book right here. This is more designed for maybe more meadow kind of looks. Planting in a Post-Wild World is one of my very favorite books. All of these books right here are by Heather Holm. How many of you have heard of her? Anybody?
She was at Wild Chicago this year.
You know, she is fab. You heard her?
Yeah.
Oh, she is so knowledgeable. She's incredible. And this was the first book that I looked at. So if you want to go through here, you want to find every plant, every bee that goes to that plant. She gives you all the information. It is an incredible book. And then another book that I read was this book. How many people have heard of this book? And Doug Tallamy. Doug Tallamy, yes. I mean, he is like the guru. He is the person who single-handedly has put out the message that we need to have native plants. And there are 4 ecological functions every single landscape must perform if we are to achieve a sustainable relationship with the natural world that supports us. Our landscapes must do the things that enable ecosystems to produce the life support we and every other species requires. Number 1, they must support a diverse community of pollinators through the growing season. So how many people here like butterflies? Everybody likes butterflies. How about, you may not know that it's a butterfly. Do you see skippers? The little skippers? Yeah, so that's another thing. How about moths? They're incredible moths. Right, because they're more diurnal. And so, plus, you're going to have beetles, you have wasps, you have flower flies that will look like a little bee. But if you look very closely, you'll see they have 2 big eyes, and flies only have 2 wings, whereas bees have 4. They must provide energy for the local food web. So what is energy? What does that mean? Linda.
Well, me. That was Rachel.
Oh,
Okay, well.
oh, what? Go ahead, Rachel.
I was gonna say calories, the things that they
Protein.
actually.
They need to have protein. And what is that right there? That is a caterpillar. That is what you want all your native plants to do. And it could be an oak tree, white oaks, host 526 kinds of caterpillars. So that is one of the best trees you can have, but you could have cherries, willows, birches. They all will support all this caterpillar life. And all the birds need to have the caterpillars. That is what they feed their babies. And that's what Doug Tallamy always talks about, how many caterpillars it takes to feed a clutch of black-capped chickadees. And one of the other things that I just told this to Linda is that one caterpillar has the protein equivalent of a steak that we would eat. So that is why they need that. And they must manage the watershed in which we live. So we all know we have creeks, and the creeks flow into larger streams, rivers that will eventually flow into Lake Michigan. So we all live in a watershed someplace. So native plants have very deep root systems. So they're able to filter out a lot of toxins that might be in the soil, phosphorus, nitrates, things like that. They also have the deep roots, a lot of them very deep roots, so they will draw water down into the soil, deep into the soil, and then that becomes available for trees to use. They must remove carbon from the atmosphere where it is wreaking havoc on the earth. Okay, so here is that garden that I put in along the side. I added more things to it because, you know, once you get into this, you have to say, oh, I've got to try this out, that. I want to see what it does. I want to see what it brings to here. So after I started doing all this, I decided I would take a year-long course at Ohio State learning about the bees, about native bees. And so I was able to then put all that together to decide what would be the plants. Now, here you can see the brick Georgian. This is, I started out with this. Now this is much larger, let me tell you. So,
See the house.
yes, every year, bit by bit. Also, at the same time that I was working on the small bed here along the driveway, in 2015, I had the very good fortune of going to the Netherlands. And there we were taking a look at all of the landscape designers, landscape architects that form the basis of what we're now calling the new perennial movement. So when Germany was rebuilding after World War II, they were using a lot of the prairie plants that you would be finding here. The grasses, echinacea, all these things they were using over there. And it's only lately that we have said, hey, we have a lot of great plants here in the Midwest. And so that was, an unbelievable moment. So we did go to Pete Aldous' house, Hummelo, where we met him. We spent all day strolling around through his gardens. So then I started laying the plants out, and here I am a couple years later.
Have to get a taller house.
Yeah, well, well, here's what. This is, does anybody know what this plant is? It is cup plant, Silphium, perfoliatum. Now, of course, when I read how tall this was going to get, I did not really believe that, but it does get to be that tall. But the bees and the butterflies love that.
And the chickadees, right?
The finches,
Finches.
oh, the goldfinches
Yeah.
love that plant. And when I would drive up and down the driveway, I would go very slowly because once the car got there, they would just like shoot out. It was like watching golden fireworks.
Would you flip back one just to see the comparison again?
Oh,
Would you mind?
oh, wait a second. I
If
got
you
it.
can't,
Oh,
don't worry
no, I can figure this out. Wait,
about it.
there?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, what you're looking at here, you can, well, it's probably hard to tell that how much I have enlarged that bed. This was probably, I started this garden in 2018, and I took this picture a couple of years ago. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you when you do this is you meet so many of your neighbors. I mean, and people drive by. I have a couple who live in another city. I saw them park their car in front of the house. I was out there doing something. Usually it's looking for caterpillars, insects. And they got out with their dog and they said, oh, we always come here and park in front of your house to look at your garden, and then we take our dog for a walk. So, there was a young guy, maybe in his 30s. He's riding his bike down the street. I was out there and he goes, I love your garden. I mean, people stop. It's just great social infrastructure. And it's been a thrill to chat with so many people.
What's that tree closest to?
That is a Cornus controversa June snow. You're talking about that one? Now, that is not a native tree. It's probably hard to come by, but that is a Cornus. I love the branching habit of it.
I noticed you don't have any evergreens.
Well, I do, but it's kind of hard to see them. Like
Oh, back up.
back in here, when you turn and walk up the sidewalk, I do have some boxwood.
Okay.
And this is a weeping purple beech.
Beautiful.
And I've got, let's see, we'll go
We
to it.
have a lot of evergreens in the backyard.
I have, yeah, I mean, there are some around there. And then this is taken, you know, as you're walking this way up to the house.
Do you have any native evergreen suggestions?
Any native evergreen suggestions? Well, I'll tell you, interestingly enough, I was just researching that topic, and it's kind of hard to find
Native?
a native evergreen. And so, I mean, the one that I came up with that would have been perfect for this one spot that was going in an eagle habitat, Pinus virginiana. Can't find it
Is
anyplace.
it white pine? Or-
No, that's Pinus strobus. No. So, no, it's very hard to find any evergreens that are native. So, here are some important terms that we really need to know. Native. What does that mean? Plants endemic, indigenous, or naturalized to a given area prior to European settlement. And here we have Joe Pyeweed, sorry, I'm saying Eupatorium perfoliatum.
We have
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the butterflies love it. There's Virginia bluebells. Here is columbine.
Is it a native one?
Yes, yes,
So those are in the ground.
those are in the ground. Mm-hmm.
Does columbine still count as native even in this area? Like we do have some columbine ourselves, but I think of it as a mountain plant.
I mean, it is native for us. I'm assuming that it would be, but I don't know. You'd have to check.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Non-native, what does that mean? Well, plants that have been introduced for horticulture, such as alfalfa, which was introduced to provide feed for cattle, burdock, lavender. These plants were used, they made teas, they were used to treat people if they got sick. I don't know if you've seen this on your highways. This is crown vetch, which is great at stopping erosion, but it really takes over. And then, of course, we all have the English ivy, Vinca minor, the periwinkle, and liriope. And unfortunately, the Vinca and the English ivy are really treading into the territory of invasive. And so if you find these, you'll see that it growing on forest floors, and that ends up impacting the spring ephemerals that could be blooming. Invasive. Okay. Plants that are introduced beyond their natural range, they spread, they take space, resources away from native species. They're going to be able to establish themselves very quickly and then to completely crowd out any native plants. So buckthorn, anybody have buckthorn? I take that's a yes. Buckthorn, multiflora rose. So if you go hiking and you'll end up seeing, I mean, it's that even makes it look better than it normally looks because you're not really seeing it bloom. But you'll see these sprawly looking plants that have these thorns. That is multiflora rose. Japanese barberry. Anybody have that?
We have barberry, but I don't know about Japanese.
Well, barberry.
I mean, it doesn't move or
Yeah, how does it spread?
Well, it will spread, and also barberry provides a haven for ticks. So it will. If you go hiking it in Cleveland, we have metro parks, and we will see, little barberries here and there. I mean, it does get a flower, so it can be pollinated and spread. And the other one is privet.
We don't prevent.
You have privet? Yeah, that's invasive. I know. Well, it takes, and I don't know if you
So
are.
when you say invasive, you mean it spreads or?
Yes.
Because ours don't spread.
Well, maybe not on your property, but it is pollinated, it has flowers, and then you'll end up, the birds could use it. You'll end up with it in other places.
Oh, I see. But
Yeah.
not on our property.
Yeah, so I put that in for Ohio. I'm sure you have that. So,
This area, the buckthorn is like the really big problem.
pardon?
In this area, the buckthorn is the really big problem.
Yeah.
It's also rough since it's very hard to get out on your own. It's the
Oh, it
wetlands.
is.
In our yard, we also have, this is not a weed plant, we have goutweed, which is absolutely miserable.
Oh, yes, goutweed. Well, I could have put in a lot, but I put in like the worst, but yes, it's very hard to get rid of that. And some of these, unfortunately, with the ground cover things, well, it's hard to get rid of English ivy or vinca, but goutweed, I mean, you would have to use something
It's
like,
like a salted earth kind of a situation almost. You have to tear up the entire bed.
yeah, and you have to keep at it like several years. It's not like one time.
Yes, we are learning.
You're living the nightmare.
It's
So one of my very favorite people is Uli Lorimer, who's the director of horticulture from the Native Plant Trust. That's in Massachusetts. You should go to their website. They have tons of information. But here's what he has to say. No one gardens better than Mother Nature. Her designs are exquisite, and the connections between the plants, insects, and animals that she has forged over millennia result from countless generations of evolution. The consequence of this process is biodiversity, as measured not only in species richness, but also in genetic richness. And the genetic richness is the key to helping with climate change, helping plants be able to adapt. So your best option is purchasing a seed-grown, locally sourced, ecoregion appropriate species. Now, do you have any native plant places here? Do you have any? I mean, we have in Columbus, Ohio, and in Cleveland, we have a lot of people who have decided they're going to start growing native plants, and they have small native plant nurseries. Do you have that here?
Not sure.
There is one in Mani, Illinois. It's Possibility Place. It's huge, but it's about an hour and a half away.
What's the name of it?
Possibility Place.
Okay.
Possibility Place.
No, where is it?
Mani, Illinois. But they ship online.
Oh, Moni, I know where Moni is. Right.
They ship
South.
and they like almost all the native sales source from that nursery.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of groups in the area that have native plant sales coming up, especially in May. The one that I would highlight is fingerprint drain. Citizens for Conservation in Barrington. They have the best, I think, the best native garden sale in the area.
Where is that?
It's up in Barrington.
And we put to pre-order.
Yeah, Barrington, Illinois. You can order up until May 1st, I think, and after May 1st, they have, it might be the 5th or the 7th, they have an in-person.
And what is the name of the organization?
Citizens for Conservation.
Citizens for Conservation.
If you check the website for Friends of the Green Bay Trail, we'll be having a listing of all the plants sales coming up
Great.
in May.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a great resource for everyone. Did everybody hear that? Friend, okay, good. So you really want to aim for at least 70% native in your garden. That's what Doug Talame says. I have some plants that are not native, but they really do draw pollinators.
With that statistic, you mean 70% native to Illinois or native to North America?
Well, it would be native to Illinois.
So
Right.
something from Pennsylvania or New Hampshire might not be appropriate for.
Right.
Okay.
But you can, there are lots of resources, you know, National Wildlife Federation, Doug Talamay has Homegrown National Park. There are a lot of resources that you can check to find out what is native in your specific ecoregion.
The Field Museum has the rice,
Yes,
yeah.
they should, yeah.
And they have like, grids of different kinds of flowers, and you can follow them up on the internet and print them out.
Yes, I actually just listened to a talk that they gave about that, about establishing that and the surveys they took of the people who came through, and it was very interesting. So what do we know? Genetically diverse plant species maintain more ecological relationships than cultivated plants do. Genetic diversity is crucial for plants' ability to adapt to an uncertain future. Preserving regional character begins with the use of regionally appropriate plants. Gardens are connected with each other and with wild spaces at local and regional scales. And there are a lot of different organizations like Pollinator Pathway. That's really big on the East Coast. I'm not sure if you have anything like that here, but Pollinator Pathway is a great resource. You can Google that, look it up. And this is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to connect cities and natural spaces so that you don't have these gaps in between native plants, so that you're providing something all over for the different pollinators. So the other thing that is important to consider when you're going to look for a native plant, you might see something that is a cultivar. So you would have the name of the plant, you would have quotation marks, and you would see the name that they've given it, you know, and I'm going to show you some echinacea. But the difference there is that if you have a plant that's a cultivar that has the quotation marks around it, that means it has been genetically modified, genetically altered. And if you want to get a patent for that, you have to prove that this plant, every single time through tissue culture, the cloning, grafting, whatever the means is that they're doing this, that each plant emerges to be exactly the same. There can't be any variation. This is big, big business. A lot of money goes into the marketing of this. These are plants that you're going to find at a lot of big nurseries, big box stores. I mean, this is what sells. And they typically give things, you know, really catchy names like, you know, Sugar Buzz, you know, Monarda. So it's really a big marketing thing. But if you have that, you have no seed. So the plant can never adapt. So if something happens to it, if it gets some sort of disease, blight, something like that, you know, it's game over. So that is why seed-produced plants are the most important key to surviving the future. What happens when we change the flowers? So when they're changing the plants, it could be for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes they might breed something to be more disease resistant. For example, phlox, I don't know how many of you grow phlox, but that was a phlox that was always known for getting a lot of powdery mildew, or Monarda will get powdery mildew. But they also might want to change the color. I had a client one time, I took her down to the botanical garden to look at plants, and she looked at one and she said, well, I really like that, but does it have to be so tall and so blue? Well, guess what? It doesn't, because now they can change all of that. So when you alter the DNA to change the color, the phenology, meaning when it blooms, maybe instead of blooming in April, it's now going to bloom in June. The shape of the flower, that's flower morphology, or the scent, that may be reducing the amount of pollen and nectar that's available to the pollinators. and you have specialist bees. So in Ohio, we have 25% of our native bees are specialists. I think it's a little higher in Illinois, it might be 39%. So here are some examples. So you have a hibiscus bee that only will go to hibiscus. Here is a squash bee. So they are pollinating winter squash, summer squash, zucchini, gourds, and pumpkins. All the pumpkins that you buy have to be pollinated by a squash bee. And longhorn bees are other pollinators that you would see on different kinds of meadow plants, like ironweed. So, this is what we're talking about, the bee going in, the bee collecting the pollen, and the pollen, it's not as easy as it looks because you have to get a little pollen grain to go right down here into the stigma and end up in the ovary. Okay, one of the biggest cultivars around is from the echinacea. Have you seen any of these?
Well, not cultivars, actually.
Well, these are cultivars. And I didn't put their names on there, but those are. So what's missing? Linda, don't answer that. What's missing? What don't you see here?
Bees?
Pollen. You don't see any pollen. And here's why that is important, because there is an unknown, I bet nobody here has ever heard of it, called revolver architecture. Some of the plants, and we're looking at echinacea, have this. And it's a particular type of floral architecture because the plant can't move. So what the plant wants to do is attract the pollinator. It attracts pollinators with the nectar. They want it to come and collect the nectar and thereby get the pollen. So some of the plants have separate compartments, and each compartment holds part of the total nectar reward. A plant is not going to just give you all of its nectar at once. Some plants might produce a lot of nectar in the morning, and then maybe they replenish it later in the afternoon. So we're going to take a look at this. This revolver architecture forces the potential pollinator to probe every separate compartment to harvest the nectar. This increases the handling time, and the movement of the pollinator on the flower increases the likelihood of the pollen being transferred and ultimately seed set. So here I'm showing you the echinacea. So here you see the little florets. So see, it's just producing some of them. And here's the bee. Has to go all the way around and probe every single area. Pretty cool, huh? So there are about 20,000 species of native bees worldwide, about 3,800, although I just read something today that said 3,600 native bees in North America. And here in Illinois, you have 400 to 500 native bees. And this came from, if you go to the Illinois, preservation place, whatever it's called, you can get all this information. So here are the important things that you need to know when you're establishing your garden. Is you want to maintain at least 3 flowering plants at all times. And I just don't mean 1, 2, 3, but you're going to have sections throughout the garden of plants that would be flowering in spring. And this is to prioritize early spring. Does anybody know why that is? What's happening in early spring with pollinators?
They emerge.
That's when you have your native bees, the queen bees are just coming out, And before they've established their nest and raised more, they need the energy. So you have to have that. And late fall flowers, that's going to be asters and goldenrods. Those are really your keystone species to provide energy in the late fall.
What about Rose of Sharon? They're late bloomers.
You know what? I have not ever seen Rose of Sharon as a native plant that's providing something.
Oh, I
So,
know, they're all through the botanic garden.
well, that doesn't mean anything. That
Native
doesn't,
gardens have specific sections for native plants.
yeah.
But
'Cause
Rose
they-
of Sharon / hibiscus, I don't understand.
No, I mean asters and goldenrods. And there are all kinds of, you don't have to do the Solidago canadensis, which is the goldenrod that we all think of that like takes over. There are many, many great goldenrods, some that do well in shade, some that don't get to be that tall, some that have stiff stems. And again, if you look in any of these books, you'll find that. Where did we see this, Linda?
Okay, was that in Hocking Hill?
No, this is when we were driving to Gethsemane. This was on the corner of,
Okay. This was at Pratt and Ridge in Chicago.
and what was the energy? It was, what was the name of the company?
I don't remember, but it's a company in Michigan that outside of Holland, I think, that comes down and has the neighbors or the energy company. I can get
Well, this
back
was,
to you guys.
I mean, we were driving one
Yeah.
way and I saw this. I said, oh my God, pull over. We got to stop here. And we got out, we walked around. The people that were installing this were so nice. We looked at every single thing that they had here. This was in
Well, it's Chicago. It was in
June, the beginning of June.
Right. It was in June because we were
Okay.
planting my garden at Pratt and Ridge.
There used to
in
be a golf
Chicago.
course there.
And
Well, it was,
not Michigan. They hired someone out of Wisconsin to come and to
oh, oops, sorry.
manage it.
Okay, so the more diversity in native plants that you have, the more pollinators that you are going to have in your garden. So you can see all the different kinds of plants that I have. So these are all from my garden. So you could, if you have any questions about any of them, I'll show you some close-ups in a little bit. But you want to have a lot of diversity. You need a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes to attract short-tongued bees and long-tongued bees. I love this one, Dahlia purpurea, helianthus, that's penstemon. These are asters here, so they're not blooming yet. This is actually I don't know, I wanted to give it a try. It's called prairie dock, and I love those leaves.
How many different species do you have?
You know, that is a good question. I don't know. That's something that's been on my list to make. To make a list. My list to make a list.
There's that app, like you can go and take a picture of each. I've done that, with all our trees and bushes and all that stuff. Came up with about 30 or 40, different species.
Well, I have a lot, that's for sure. So density is functional and beautiful. So, when I was setting out those plants, you want to plant closely. You want to have things that are dense. So let's say that you might have a plant that gets to be taller, and if you have a really hard rain, we all know what happens. You've got a plant that falls over. So you might have a plant that you put in front of it that's a little more robust, that would hold that up a little bit better. And these are all things that I think you can find out on your own when you're doing this. So if you look here within vignettes, so here is Joe Pye weed, here's Monarda, here's a plant this is Persicaria, that is not native, but it attracts pollinators. I have blue vervain, here's Picanthum, the Virginia mountain mint. You can see there's Veronicastrum, The bumblebees love Veronicastrum. So I try to have all different shapes. I'm just looking at the shapes, looking at what I have and putting them in. I'm not sitting down and drawing a plan.
Is it a native, a bee balm?
The bee balm, that is a cultivar, and that's called raspberry wine.
Do the bee likes? Because I
The
read
bee-
about it. Like some of them are almost as good.
Yes. Well, you know, the Chicago Botanical Garden does all these studies and they will list all of these plants and and they rate them according to pollinator visitation and a lot of other things. Also, Mount Cuba Center also has a lot of plant trials that they've done. So Chicago and Mount Cuba, so you can go and maybe you want to check out all the Monardas, the Echinaceas, all that, and you can see what the visitations are.
Which website? Chicago Botanical Garden?
Chicago Botanical Garden does the trials and Mount Cuba Center.
Where is that?
That is in Delaware.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's, well, Sam Hoadley is the one who's done it. He's like a resource, an expert on all that. Okay, I better get going here. Okay, so here's what you want to do to encourage wildlife in your garden, and that is not be as tidy as you think you need to be. Tidy up less. So this was taken at Old Brick, and they put in sort of a sample garden of the things you could put in. Maybe you have a log, maybe you have, you know, this little piece here, maybe you have sticks like that. But what you're doing is providing brush piles that are hibernation sites for butterflies. Then you have all these, look at these little green sweat bees. They're nesting here in logs. This is a cavity nesting bee, a leaf cutter bee. So I don't know, redbuds are really good for this. So she will cut a circle. So if you see a leaf that has sort of a circle cut out of it, then she rolls it up like this and she flies it to a cavity. She's a cavity nesting bee, and she puts in this leaf. It's sort of, she's creating like a little, you know, bassinet for the babies that the eggs she'll be laying. So you planted all this. Now I want you to become a seeker of wonder. So I want you to go out there and look. And to look, you might have to bend down. You might have to pick up a leaf to see what's under it. You have to stand still. So if you're walking by a garden, you have to just stand still and look at one spot, and then you'll start to see what's going on. And they, you know, they'll fly off if you're making sudden movements. So I have a bunch of things here to show you. This is Monarda fistulosa right here, and that is native. And the bumblebees are crazy for that. So this is how I spend a lot of my time. I'll move on to this one. This is St. John's wort, and I am telling you, the bumblebees go crazy for this. They're like dog paddling across that. I mean, look. And then at the end, that's a little yellow-faced bee that's right there. And then the next one is garlic chives, and this was like a pollinator party. I mean, look at that.
And seed cart, we've been giving out garlic chive seeds.
Oh, good. This is Geranium maculatum, which is wild geranium, and that blooms in late May. And this is a carpenter bee hopscotching on those flowers. Now this is, this is a phlox. You can see this butterfly is nectaring. This is Phlox gina. That is a cultivar. But I am telling you, that plant is a pollinator magnet. So it just has, I mean, butterflies, clearwing hummingbird moths. So don't be deterred by that one. And then here's a monarch, nectaring on Joe Pieweed. So these are things you're going to go out and look for. Wait for it. I'm going to try to speed this up. This is Eupatorium perfoliatum bone set. This I took at the Oldbrook Botanical Garden, and this was in August.
Where was this?
Oldbrook Botanical Garden. Look at this plant. Okay, this is wild petunia right here. And I happened to be walking by and I saw this little green sweat bee back out. And fly off. This is Clethra alnifolia, and this is a cultivar, but this plant is always covered with all kinds of wasps, bees. Oh, wait a sec, I did a mistake there. Okay, and then this, okay, this is Coreopsis zagreb. I happened to be walking by and I looked down and I saw this thing and I saw this little bee. This is a candy striped spider. It can detect a sleeping bee or a bee that's just resting, and it crawls up to it. The bee can't detect it, the spider, and then the spider wraps up and kills the bee. Such is life. So, in case you didn't know this, male bees, after they leave the natal nest, can never go back to the natal nest. So if you go out in the early evening, you're going to find these bumblebees will be using their mandibles, they'll be holding on to the under the stems, they might be on a leaf, and that's where they're going to be sleeping. It's a rough life. And then this next one, these are the longhorn bees. Remember, we saw that one, you can see their long horns there,
Yeah.
and they're sleeping. So this you're going to find in the early evening. Now, if you find a lacewing, send me a little email about it, and I will put your name up. These are very, oh, uh-oh, what happened? Oh. So this is so teeny, but that's the egg. You might find a whole slew of eggs on a leaf, and these are voracious predators of aphids, mealybugs, and spider mites. And then here is the lacewing when it matures. And I happened to glance down and saw these orb weave spiders, these babies ballooning. Yeah. And then there's the orb weave, the adult. Crab or flower spiders, this could be another thing you see. Now you might have to lift up a leaf. So crab spiders walk sideways, they don't drop, and they will just sit very patiently. It's called a sit and wait predator, and they will be completely motionless until, you know, a hapless bee comes along, and there you have it. This right here is called an ambush bug. And I saw this on a plant, and this is a leaf cutter bee. Can you see all the pollen? The leaf cutter bees don't have corbicula. They have a scopa. That's where their pollen goes. And so that's the first time I'd ever seen that. I cut that off. I brought it inside. I put it on a white paper plate. I'm taking pictures of it. Then I got little tweezers and I tried to separate that. And the bug went like that. A fun day for me. So this is also, I planted pussy toes a few years ago. So these are the pussy toes. Here's what the leaf looks like. I looked down and I saw this little thing. And then I looked more closely and I saw the caterpillar of the American painted lady. And there it is. I brought that in and it pupated, made a chrysalis. So this is one of my favorite plants right here. This is, I think you saw some of the blue. It's called Scutellaria incana. Hoary skullcap is the common name. And bumblebees like this, and this is a little teeny bee. See how round it is? That is called an orange-tipped wood digger bee. This is one of my favorite wasps, the great golden digger wasp, which looks ferocious, but it is so gentle. It will never bother you. And this is on Virginia mountain mint, Picantha muticum, which all of the pollinators, the bees, love that.
You say mint?
Yes, mountain mint.
We have,
No,
We get them on our cup plant also, the great golden diggers.
yes. Oh, I'd never seen that out on a cup plant.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, it may be because it's what is available to them, but they seem to like it as well.
Oh, that's good to know. Bicolored striped sweat bee. This is one of my favorite pictures. Okay, so I gotta really talk fast. Okay, so here's a little story. This, oh shoot. So this was on a fence post. So you can see, here is the cocoon on a fence post. Took a knife, cut that off, brought it home, and maybe a month later, I had no idea what this thing was, and it was off the fence post. So I just put it in a container and kept this on top of it like a little blanket. And I had no idea what this was. And then it came out and he closed. And here it is. It's a large tulipane moth.
It's got such a pretty face.
It's
got the black on the side.
That was just the cutest little thing. It's like it's like a little Angora rabbit. Look at it. I just love that thing. I've never had one of those before. Spicebush swallowtail caterpillar. I planted Lindera benzoin spicebush. I went out and found an egg, brought it inside, and had these inside. And so when the caterpillar first hatches from the egg and grows a little bit, it looks like a little pile of poop. And that is a defense mechanism. And here it is when it's grown, and it has these false eyes. So this is just part of the defense mechanism where it can actually raise up if it's being threatened and sort of look like a snake. But the eyes actually have a reflective surface. And then here's how they protect themselves. You can see it on the leaf. They have spinnerets, so they put these spinnerets out. They will dry. These are silk spinnerets. They dry, and the leaf will fold up around it. Then when they're getting ready to pupate, they turn orange. Now, I had never had one of these before, so I'm looking this up and finding out. And here it is beginning to, pupate. There it is in the stages. And then I took after it pupated, I had to take that upstairs to the 3rd floor where it was cold. And then in late April, they actually eclosed. This was a thrill, I have to tell you. So these are all the things I'm discovering in the garden. Okay, we're at the end here. This is Linda's garden here. She lives in Evanston.
Before.
Well, yes, before.
Okay.
Well, before, yeah, yes. And so we worked on that a couple years ago, right?
Uh-huh. It'll be 3 years.
Okay, so that's what we did in the front. And then there's a side view. Another view. So our landscapes need balance. This is what we've always done in the past, and here is what we need to be doing now. You can still have aesthetic, decorative values, but now we want you to think a little more about the functionality of your landscapes. What can you do? And we went over this, 70%, purchase seed-grown plants, plant for 3 seasons, leave some bare earth because there are a lot of native bees that really like sandy, bare soil. Leave it messy. Of course, don't use pesticides. And leave the leaves until late spring. We know we can do better than this. Our world depends on it. Thank you very much. So, garden, and when you do, I want you to go out there and look and see what you can find. I'm always out there. Yes.
One of the early slides, you said lean soil is best.
Well, yes, because if you're putting in a lot of compost, really enriching the soil, native plants don't really like that. They will end up being too floppy. So they like a leaner soil. So when I'm doing gardens like at Linda's, we had to build up the bed a little bit after we took a lot of stuff out, but it was just a very small amount. We did not amend the soil at all.
And I was told that mulch is not really a great thing.
I don't ever use mulch in my garden. So that's what you want to do. If you plant densely, as things grow, you're going to be crowding, out the weeds. The weeds won't have enough of light to grow. That isn't to say you won't have some, but your plants will be tall enough that you'd really have to go in and part the plants to see a little weed. So you can ignore that. Yes.
It seemed like most of the flowers that you suggested were full sun, or they would look like in the picture. Is there any? I have such a canopy over my property, and that if something needs a lot of sun, it's just not going to make it.
Well, if you go to some of these books that I had put up there, you will find all that information. If you go to Homegrown National Park, National Wildlife Federation, all these will list all that. Xerces. Does anybody else have another source they would suggest?
Illinois Native Plant Society.
Illinois Native Plant Society. All right.
I would just add that what Ann planted in my yard, I face north, east, so I am shade, and Joe Kyrie was doing fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's growing great, and my bee balm, my Incanarda, Asclepias, I get them mixed up.
No, that's right. The milkweed.
Milkweed. And yeah, I am semi-shade, and it was pretty amazing. Well, you should see what it looks like now, but Anne would be able to, you saw all the plants, and they were mostly native. I have the magnolia, which is a bay magnolia, which is native.
A sweet bay magnolia.
Yeah, tree. Anyway, I'm happy to share.
Does it stay green, the magnolia tree? Does it stay green longer than
the sweet bay?
It will have some green leaves on it.
But like I wanted to buy it, but it's actually not native. I even talked to the website. It's native to like East Coast, but it's native enough. But it stays green. They told me it stays green almost all winter. Is that true?
Well, yours is smaller. Mine, no, I mean, I have some green leaves on mine and somewhere I'm seeing new leaves coming out. So it's, you can't call it really an evergreen, so to speak.
No, because the leaves are gone by November.
Yeah, I still have leaves on mine, but mine is bigger than yours. So,
For shade, you might end up with something that looks more like, an Illinois woodland than an Illinois prairie, depending. But there's still a lot of lovely options. I know from experience that, like, for example, bluebells do really, really well in shady areas. We're dealing with a much more full sun yard, so I can't give you like the fullest of recommendations, but the options are there. They're just, going to be more wildflowery than prairie.
yeah, you'll be able to find good resources for shady areas.
When you were mentioning having 3 flowering plants at all time, early spring and late fall, and you mentioned late fall being asters and goldenrod, what are your options for early spring?
Well, we looked at some of them before. So the Aquilegia, that is a plant, the columbine, and it's red, and that usually is blooming at the time the hummingbirds get up here, and that's, that's a good combination right there, the hummingbirds and the columbine. But, there are lots of plants that don't need full sun. There are a lot of penstemons that you don't need full sun. I use a lot of carex, which, are the sort of, well, it's not like a tall grass, but I don't know if you know carex. Well, Carex.
Okay.
So look that up because those are some good plants to intersperse in between. There's some goldenrods, Flexicalis, which does well in shade.
What do you think about hostas?
Well, you know what? I have hostas because years ago when hostas were big, I had hostas.
Yeah, we still have.
And you know what? I'm not going to dig all those out and get
That's
rid
right.
of them. So, so I do have hostas. And, the bumblebees like to use the hosta flowers.
Yeah,
So,
we have them under our evergreen.
yeah.
If you're looking for places to look for spring flowers, Green Bay Trail is kind of dormant right now, but it'll be in a week or so.
Yeah.
And the Everly Wildflower Garden by South School here in Glencoe. There's a great place for the spring ephemerals. We just kind of have to look underneath things.
But if it's a spring ephemeral, that's usually going to, die back. So you may not see that. So I would say if you want to take a look at some of these sources. And if you have lists of things that people can access, that would be great. I don't know how close you are to the Chicago Botanical Garden or to Lurie. I don't know. To me, that is worth it. I mean, I have been there so many times, right, Martha?
Can you talk about providing shelter? I know you would mention like the log on the ground and that thing, but for bees and ladybugs and everything, you always go to
Well, those, I know. I mean, that was a big thing, but the problem with those is that unless you are vigilant about cleaning those out every season, you can end up with a lot of diseases that are in those. So I know that those are sold. Everybody loves those. Everybody loves seeing the mason bees come out now. But that's, if you go to Crown Bees, they will have a lot of information about that. Yes. Yes, because, really if you buy some of those, they would have like inserts that you can put in, then you can take them back out. But that's the problem, is you can end up with a lot of diseases that will be in those.
In your garden, do you leave the plant material up all winter long?
I leave it up all winter long unless it's something that's along that narrow strip on the driveway that if it, flopped over, that would be too hard to, get the snow off.
And then
But
how
oth-
close do you trim it?
If I'm cutting it,
Yeah, when you do clean it up, how
Oh.
close to the ground do you trim?
I usually leave like 18 to 24 inches for, the stem nesting bees.
Okay.
So, I mean, once the plant grows up, you're not going to see that. So, I mean, right now, I would say I've cut some things down. I still have some of the, stem stubble in the garden, and it doesn't look a thing like that one picture. So, I mean, most people probably wouldn't think that's attractive, but it's, that's sort of the life of the garden. So, I think that's, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in Shaker Heights if people start doing this, because you can just have your taxes hedged that looks nice all winter long, right? So,
Do you compost that then?
I don't compost only because I try to use every square foot of the yard for some sort of plants. So it's like, okay, where am I going to do the compost? And I have logs that are in my gardens. I have one that's standing up. I have my husband, he went out and drilled some holes in it. I have in the back, I have pieces of bark. I make habitat piles, so I'll have some sticks, and some evergreen material that I stack up. So I have those. Those will be like more in corners in the back. I don't have that front and center, but I do have logs in my garden out front. But once the things grow up, you can hardly even see those. So, I'm always checking to see if I see anything there. Now, I did go for a walk in some woodsy area by our house. It was in December. It was a nice warm day, and there was a big piece of flat bark that was on the ground that had come off a tree. And I lifted that up, and I found an overwintering bald-faced hornet queen. Ooh. I know, look, these are my people right here. So,
We once 2 summers ago, just 3.
I think it would have been like 4 or something.
Oh gosh. Well, either way, we let them actually stay on our porch, even though everyone thought we were insane. And
They were friendly to us.
if they can learn to recognize faces, which people will tell you as if it's like a scary thing, but actually it meant that if I hung out with them as their high was growing every day, they just got used to people. And her parents visited us. I was like, are they gonna not? No, they were friendly to them too. They just grown up around people and had learned that people were not a scary thing, and were our live-in pest control for the entire summer. They were
that's
very
right.
girls.
That's right. That's right. They are very good at that. So, oh yay! I'm so happy. Okay. My time is up. Thank you all so much. Thank you.